6:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to say good morning to the hardest working man, at least on this show right now, Stefano DiPietro, meteorologist over at WSMV. Stefano, always great to have you on. I know you're hard at work, so let's get right to it. What are we looking at as far as the weather right now and the rest of the day?
It's terribly cold out there, and with hundreds of thousands still without power, it's a really dangerous situation. Our temperatures are near the single digits this morning. We're only going to get back to 20 this afternoon. If we get lucky, a lot of us will be in the teens, and then it's right back into the single digits overnight tonight with wind chills tomorrow morning that should be sub-zero.
The feels like temperature, you said 0, 1, and we're talking about these freezing temperatures for, at least a couple of days, right? The kids are out of school until at least Tuesday. So when do you feel like Mother Nature will be helping to melt some of this ice and snow, particularly the ice on the roadways in the neighborhoods?
So it's interesting because you'll see the sun the next couple of days, but it doesn't do as much help as you think it would. This time of year, our sun angle is so low in the sky that the rays of sun will just come in, they'll hit off the snow and ice, and they'll go right back into the atmosphere. So because we don't get a lot of sun through the day, just in general with timing and the angle so low, it's going to take days here. I wouldn't be surprised if some schools didn't go back the entire week, just because you're talking about people's neighborhoods that, they can't get in and out of. The areas are so hilly around here that there will be people that maybe not be able to get out for days here, maybe until the end of the week.
Wow. Stefano, the chances that we'll see, like overnight, we saw some more, I guess you would call them snow squalls, some areas of snow still running through. Should we expect that over the next couple of days?
No, that's pretty much wrapped up here. The air that's settled in at this point is not only very cold, but it's also extremely dry as well. So getting any more kind of precipitation is kind of really starting to dwindle for us. I will tell you what is a concern, though, because the temperatures are still so low, and I just talked about how there won't be a lot of melting. The trees and the power lines still have hundreds of pounds of ice on them, and they're still getting overly stressed by that. So it's very much in the realm of possibility that we see more down trees and power lines through the next couple of days until we can get this ice out of here.
So in other words, that takes care of one of the questions that I was going to ask, which is we have, I don't know, I'm seeing anywhere from, 250,000 to whatever, but a lot of people without power. I'm seeing different numbers. But the question is, we could still see additional power outages because of the trees and all of that ice on the trees over the power lines.
Yes, you absolutely could. It also makes it extremely dangerous to be outside. I know things have stopped falling as far as the sleet, the freezing rain is concerned, but you still should not, under any circumstances, be standing under any tree that is encased in ice right now. We have a tree that's here up the hill at the station that could come down at any second. You can see the weight pulling it down more and more with each passing hour. So you really have to be extremely careful in this kind of a situation. Everything is calmed down, but it doesn't mean the danger factor is over.
Stefano, let me ask you this, and then Joan will get her. We're in different studios, so Joan and I can't communicate like we usually do. But real quickly, Stefano, did this storm, I know that it seemed like we didn't get as much snow as we thought we would have. Did this storm, has it been for you as advertised? Was it not as bad? Was it worse? What do you think about what we eventually saw with this storm?
I think that it was as advertised. We never really thought we were going to get a lot of snow out of this, and we kind of discounted those rumors of 2 feet of snow almost immediately early last week, and then we really started harping on the threat for icing early, if not at the latest, in the middle of the week. And we were warning people, the snow's not going to cause a lot of problems, but you need to be careful of the icing. We said that we would have several hours of sleet and freezing rain. It's exactly what happened, and I think that because there was a little bit of a lull between the snow falling originally and then the freezing rain really kicking into gear, some people kind of got a false sense of security that the forecast was going to be a bust, and then everything kind of, just took off and running from there. So The storm did exactly as we advertised. I really do believe that, and the damage, the power outages is unfortunately kind of showing that for us.
So, Stefano, you talked about the low angle of the sun and that it may give some thaw to some of this freezing that we see on the roadways and on the trees. The potential for that to refreeze, like in the overnight hours, is serious. Am I thinking that right through?
You are absolutely correct. I mean, anything that thaws out, which is not going to be a whole lot today, but even if you get a little bit of melt, refreezing is going to happen very quickly because we have another flash freeze tonight where temperatures will drop into single digits. And remember, you can't just go out and throw rock salt down when the temperature gets below 20 degrees and expect it to work. I mean, even, we've heard from TDOT officials that have said that sometimes their solutions just don't work as well under 20 degrees. So that means that even things that are treated could still be icy tomorrow morning, and anything that's encased in ice right now is going to continue to be so.
All right, so that's my question is, let's say that you are in a neighborhood and you've got all of this ice out on the roadway, and the problem is being able to get out of your neighborhood. What is the best way to melt that ice?
At this point, the best way, well, you would need, if you can get to the store, but the problem is trying to, get out of the neighborhood to get some ice melt. That's not just salt. You need a different kind of solution for that. The best thing you can do is try and get yourself some traction. So if maybe you have a cat at home and you have some kitty litter, that's really helpful in getting traction. If you have sand or anything that your tires can physically grip onto to help get you your tires able to grab onto something to get you going, that's the best advice I have. Melting it is going to be very difficult to do. You're probably going to have to try to break the ice up before you can even do that. I remember, when I grew up in Pennsylvania, you'd be out there with a pickaxe to try to get some of this ice out of here. That's the best way to get rid of it at this point.
Wow. All right. Joan, you got anything else for Stefano DiPietro?
No, but Stefano, thank you for taking time out to hang out with us for a couple of minutes here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Pleasure.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Now, Scott Trent is with us now. By the way, Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. Scott Trent is with us, Senior Vice President of Communications, Tennessee Electric Cooperatives. All right, so number one, define what the Tennessee Electric Cooperatives is. That's like a whole bunch of electric companies, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So there are 25 consumer-owned electric co-ops in the state of Tennessee. We work with those guys. Everything from public relations to legislative work and in this case, mutual aid.
All right, so let's talk about the power outages. First of all, what number do you have? I'm seeing, 270,000, 250,000. I think it just depends on, I don't know, maybe how they're counting. So, what is your official number of power outages throughout the state of Tennessee?
Yeah, it's a moving target. It has been all weekend and probably will continue to be. Each utility reports their numbers slightly different, and so it's hard to get a specific number. The co-op number that we are using is 85,000 statewide, both co-ops and other utilities. That number is closer to 280,000, something like that.
Okay, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a moving target. So let's talk about now the question that everybody's going to want to know. And it's an unfair question to you, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it, which is, if somebody's without power right now, how long before their power gets back on?
Yeah, that is an impossible question to ask right now, or to answer right now. An ice storm like this causes incredible damage, and something that we talk about a lot, when you add an inch of ice to a power line, you're adding about 2,000 pounds of weight to that one span of line between two poles. And anytime you have that amount of weight, that amount of stress, things break. And so with many times we deal with outages, and it's a tree falls, it blows a fuse somewhere, we get the tree off the line, refuse the line, and the lights come back on. In this case, things are breaking. Poles are falling down, lines are being broken, and that kind of damage just takes a whole lot longer to repair than we would like. It's a slow process. I was with some crews yesterday, and not only is it repairing the lines, it's getting to those locations. In many cases, they're having to cut trees out of the road just to get to where they need to be to start those repairs. And so it is going to be a long process. Much of yesterday was spent on, if you think about you have a pole that's broken or some damage, it's a quick repair and it gets a lot of people on. And so that's what yesterday was spent doing. Today, and as we get longer into the week, that process slows down. And so where it might be yesterday you spend 2 hours and you get 1,000 people on, now we're getting into the issues where you spend 2 hours and you get 5 people on, you spend 2 hours and you get 1 person back on. And so the process of restoration slows as we go. Yeah,
because you're going for like mass first, like, all right, we got 5 to 7 to 8 to 9,000 people in this one area. You got to get those people their power back on. How do you prioritize who you're going to turn on when? Like, how are you going to restore who when?
Yeah, there's a plan. There's a deliberate plan that utilities follow, and it's basically critical infrastructure first, things like hospitals, emergency services, water systems, those kind of things. Then your main power lines, like you just said, that serve lots of people. Then you get into individual neighborhoods, and then you get into individual service lines where the line that runs from the street to your home may be down. Those are going to be the last things that get picked up. Unfortunately, in a process like this, some people get power quick. Others, it takes longer. But crews are working. It is something that these folks take personally. They want to get the power back on, and they are out doing everything they can to make that happen.
Talk about the shifts. I mean, I know that people are listening. They're listening on their battery-operated radios, maybe in their car, and they may be without power. And so I know that it is, as I said, an impossible question to answer and perhaps an unfair question to ask, but it's the one that everybody wants to know when the power is going to be back on. Sure. Talk about, you said the workers take it very personally. Talk about the shifts. I mean, you're talking about, I read somewhere that the men and women are working 12, 13, 14-hour shifts?
Each utility has different rules and follows a different plan, but in general, that when the first calls come in, most utilities will work 24 hours straight. After that 24 hours passes, this is dangerous work, and it gets extremely dangerous when you have workers who are out there tired. And so usually after that first 24 hours, they get sent home, and then you start for some rest, and then you start this usually 16 hours on process of, come in. Most of our utilities were going back at 6 this morning. They'll work 16 hours, take another break, and then continue that process till everything's back on.
So I know that people are obviously, again, getting frustrated and they want their power back on. Rest assured, it's being worked on, and people are, obviously I've been without power for days on end, as I was explaining to folks earlier. I know the frustration. What are some of the tips that you might have for people whose power is out? First of all, when somebody's power goes out, do they need to tell you, or do you just know based on your computers and all that?
Again, we work with different utilities, and different utilities have different systems in place. It's always good to let us know.
Okay.
It would be unfortunate if we didn't know, or if something slipped through the cracks. So it's always best to make that report and let your utility know what's happening at your home. there's never a downside to doing that.
All right. Is there anything that we've missed from this interview that people need to know? I mean, if you see a power line down on the ground, obviously don't touch it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just a couple of safety things to keep in mind. Always assume that
and it's not me, right?
It can, they're lower than they normally are. There's trees on them. They may be laying over a fence. Keep your distance. Assume that it's hot. Don't get near it. A couple of other things to keep in mind. If you're running a generator, very, very dangerous to connect a generator to your home's electrical system. That can actually push power back onto the electric grid if you don't do that properly. It's something that we recommend you have an electrician do. But in a case like this, we know people do that. If you do connect a generator to your home's electric system, make sure you turn the main breaker in your home off to disconnect your home from the power grid. It's just an easy thing to do to protect your neighbors, protect first responders, and protect those line workers who are out there trying to get the lights back on.
All right, Trent, thank you very much for the information. Very much appreciated. And keep me abreast, if you would, on those numbers. Trent Scott, Senior Vice President of Communications, Tennessee Electric Cooperatives. It's going to be a while, Joan. I hate to say it, but it's going to be a while before everybody's power is back on. Talking to Stefano, it's going to be a minute before everybody's roads are cleared in the neighborhoods. That's my neighborhood. Joan, where I live, is my roads in my neighborhood. They're going to be iced over, and so it just depends on if they're able to get them all cleared out. We know that we have local lawmakers that do what they can, and people that work within Wilson County and Mount Juliet to get the roads cleared in the neighborhoods as quickly as possible. Thank you. Thankfully, they were able to get those done relatively quickly. It is 6:24. Joan, did I do traffic, Joan? I don't think that I did. So is Joan's mic on? Because she's not responding.
I'm here.
There you are, Joan. All right.
There we go.
All right. So what did we do? I don't think we did traffic. So real quickly, give me a traffic report, and then we'll talk about the news at 6:30.
Okay, so it looks like in Pleasant View, there's a crash on 24 eastbound. They finally got this on the board for us. Pleasant View in Robertson County, 24 eastbound at the McMahon Hollow Road overpass. It's a crash, and the left lane is blocked off by it. That is involving a tractor trailer. Now, you've got an accident on 40 east side, the eastbound side, past Spence Lane. It's a crash that takes out the left lane. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, Joan, you real quick, what is coming up in the news at 6:30? Then I'm going to read a Stoltzko spot. Go ahead.
Okay, so we do have a death toll now. Death toll is at 14 across all areas that were hit by this storm. More on that coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, Joan, thank you. Coming up at 6:35, here's what's going to happen in the next segment. I'm going to speak to Doug Crulin. He is the president and CEO of BNA. So we've got some good news on BNA. So we're going to talk about flights and all that kind of stuff. Also coming up, I am going to talk about the Minnesota shooting. We've had law enforcement and there was another shooting. A person is dead. You're hearing all the usual narratives about, who this person was, and the media definitely has a story that they're trying to push. There's a lot to talk about with the shooting in Minnesota. I'm going to get to that coming up in the next 30 minutes here on Nashville's Morning News. .638 Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Real quickly, Joan, we're having some computer issues in here, but I want to make sure we get to your traffic before we get to Doug Crulin at BNA. Joan, what's going on with the roads?
Yeah, so on 24 eastbound, we've been watching that accident scene near the Mount Pleasant area. Pleasant View area this morning. So 24 eastbound at the McMahon Hollow Road overpass. It is still jammed up this morning, but now that tractor trailer has been pushed off to the left shoulder. You also have some problems on 40 eastbound at Spence Lane, exit 213, with a stalled out vehicle on the right lane. And looks like cameras are down in a lot of spots this morning, so we're not really able to see a whole lot that's going on in the roadways. We're just trying to report everything that we're seeing as things jam up. Be careful of that black ice. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. Thank you, Joan. And yes, it is really, really cold, icy, black ice on the roadways. We've still got whole bunch of power outages as well. Want to welcome on into the program Doug Krulin, President and CEO of BNA. Doug, always great to have you on. So let's talk about what happened yesterday. There was a headline, and I thought it was important and I don't know, kind of alarming, but I think it may have been a little alarmist. So maybe you can explain to us what exactly happened. The FAA closed Nashville's air traffic control tower. So talk a little bit about what that means. Does that mean that planes stopped flying in and out of BNA?
Yeah, it definitely can mean that. The biggest challenge, just like everybody else in your audiences, is the controllers couldn't get from their home to work. So the controllers that were on duty yesterday morning had made it in, and they're only allowed to work so many hours per day. And by the end, they ran out of duty day at 1 a.m. this morning. But thank goodness they got up and those were able to get on the road safely and get out here, and we reopened the tower at 5:10 this morning.
Okay, so let's talk delays. Let's talk about, how bad is the airport traffic, if you will. I know that the runways get backed up. So let's talk about how does BNA get the runways so that they are able to be used by the airplanes?
Sure. So we plan year-round. We have a snow and ice control plan, and then we really start ramping up in October to make sure we're ready to go. So this storm that was coming across, we've been preparing for it for a little over a week. We're responsible for the runways, the roads, and the ramps, and the airlines are responsible for cleaning off their airplanes. So we have friction testers that we can drive onto the runway that simulate the braking action of a jet, and so we know whether the runway pavement is clean enough for the airlines to operate safely.
All right, so tell me about the delays. I know that you've got delays all across the country because of the snow and the ice. So how are we doing at BNA?
Well, we're actually doing really good. Yesterday was a tough day for the airlines. They will cancel to avoid bringing an airplane in where it has a high probability of icing up. So yesterday they canceled 464 flights, about 78% of what was scheduled to come into Nashville. However, today we're already departing aircraft, and only 130 flights will be canceled today. So we're flying a little more than 75% of all normal scheduled flights here.
How long does it typically take to recover from something like this? And of course, knowing that it's not only about BNA, but it's about all the other airports across the country. It sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It is. It's a big challenge. And, at Nashville, most of our airplanes are full, or 90%. And so when you have flights that cancel, there's only 10% fluff to move people from one jet to another jet. And so I would say it'd probably take 3 to 5 days to get rid of all the backlog once the weather, moves out of the East Coast and everybody's back into, pretty sunshine.
Doug, has this been the worst? Has this been the worst storm that has impacted BNA in the last, couple of decades? Or give me a comparison.
So in 2015, we had a lot of snow, and that was a real challenge for us. And all the airlines bought more equipment. We bought a lot more equipment. So we have some really high-speed equipment that'll clear a runway fast. So 2015 was snow. This storm started off with 3 or 4 inches of snow, followed by ice. It's real hard to remove ice, but we've been working it hard, and both of our runways are operational, and we forecasted to stay that way.
All right, Doug, I don't know. Did I miss anything here? It sounds like things are recovering pretty quickly at BNA.
Yeah, we're doing well at BNA, and just thank you for your team and the traffic reports. Listened on the way in this morning, so I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, and we'll talk to you again certainly soon. And Doug Krulin, always there for Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 6:45, and we've got a traffic report here on WTN. All right, this is old. Take it down, take it down, take it down, take it down.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not your RJ. It's not your fault. You need to know this. All of this that is happening is not RJ's fault. A couple of things, sometimes are when we have limited staff and things get a little askew. So let's go ahead and Joan, talk about what is going on with the roadways, and then we'll segue into what I'm going to talk about next, which is the shooting in Minneapolis.
Okay, so we're looking at the big problems on eastbound 24 in the Pleasant View area. Now the traffic center is telling us that this is multiple vehicles that have gone off the road. TDOT says at least one was a tractor trailer off the road eastbound 24. And the trouble is between Springfield, Ashland City, and New Hope Road. Multiple vehicles off the road. That's going to tell you that there's some ice in that spot this morning, and it's a great place to not travel if you can. And that roadway may be closed because of that accident. Also, it's blocked off in Williamsport at Williamsport Pike, both directions at Leatherwood Road. That storm damage. You've got major delays heading in if you're traveling on any of the roadways this morning. It looks like it's really slow on 65 in the Brentwood area, and 40 is traveling okay this morning. But, it's just that the speeds are so slow. You're not going to get anywhere fast, and you got to watch out for that black ice. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's what we call white knuckle driving, Joan.
Oh, yeah.
High today of, it sounds like the high is sort of, 14, 15, 16 years, 16 degrees, but it feels like 0 or 1. And right now we do have icy roads. We've obviously got some power outages, which we've been talking about all morning long, dangerous roads as well. If you want to give a road report, by the way, feel free, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Joan, as you know, and you and I spoke about this before the show today, there's been another shooting in Minnesota involving law enforcement. A guy named Alex Preddy was shot and killed by ICE. And so the lead up is very important. First of all, a lot of people are saying that Alex Preddy, you've got the mainstream media, their narrative is this ICU nurse was out there and, he was just an innocent, standing by, hoping to help people who may have been hurt by ICE or the Border Patrol. Well, there's a lot more to the story, and I'm going to get into it here on Nashville's Morning News. There's a video, and you can see one of the videos. I'm here on Super Talk TV if you're watching via Facebook or YouTube and so forth. But the Border Patrol had a guy they were trying to arrest, an illegal alien, apparently.
Who, by the way, is still on the loose because of this.
Okay. Thank you, Joan. Yes, he's still on the loose. And so a couple of women get in the way of the Border Patrol trying to arrest this guy. And this is all on video. So now the Border Patrol tries to get the women out of the way so that they could arrest the illegal alien. And so the guy who ultimately was shot by the Border Patrol is a guy named Alex Preddy. And he decides to get involved. He starts jawing at the Border Patrol. He gets in the face of the Border Patrol. He's screaming, "Don't touch her," meaning one of the women that was physically preventing ICE from doing their job. And so Alex Preddy ultimately ends up getting pepper sprayed. So then he struggles. He fights back. He gets thrown to the ground. It turns out he had a gun. Alex Preddy had a loaded gun in his waistband. So the gun, because Preddy is, it's a melee. You got a lot of people that are, throwing him to the ground and checking to see if he's got, any kind of weaponry on him. And yes, indeed, they throw him to the ground. They find a loaded gun. So the gun was taken away after the struggle. I mean, they've got him on the ground. He's been pepper sprayed. They find the gun. And now what happened, apparently, is that his gun, it was taken away by one of the law enforcement officers on the scene. Some are saying that his gun accidentally went off as it was being taken away by one of the officers, and that led to the Border Patrol opening fire. Okay? So they don't know if he's managed to get another gun, another gun, the Border Patrol, they hear a gunfire from somewhere, and they thought maybe he had found somehow another gun. They knew that it wasn't them, the Border Patrol, that fired the gun. And so they shot Alex Preddy dead. Now, he was carrying a 6-hour P320 9mm pistol. One expert Daily Mail spoke to said that this model of gun, and Joan, you and I were talking about this before the show, this model of gun has a history of firing, as they say, uncommanded.
Or negligent discharge.
Or negligent discharge. Okay.
It's an unintentional firing of that gun.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I've never had that happen to me, obviously, but, apparently, didn't you say you have one of these guns, Joan?
So that's the P320, and I have the P365.
Okay.
Different models. But that 320 has been known to have that problem with discharging, especially if the gun hits the ground. Now, we don't know if that happened.
The gun,
in that scuffle.
If you look at the video, the gun was in the hands of one of the Border Patrol agents, the one wearing a gray jacket. And so what they're saying is that the gun went off as it was in the hands of this law enforcement agent. So, and here's the thing: if this thing was loaded,
right,
and it was ready to fire,
yes,
and it went off just by this one agent pulling it out of his waistband and walking away, then, I mean, that, I'm sorry, but if you're there for a peaceful protest, and by the way, this guy was legally allowed to carry the gun. It was permitted and everything. But, I mean, he had a loaded gun in his waistband. Now, he did not, here's the thing that's going on. And Bill Malugian at Fox News is actually reporting on this. There's been a lot of anger on the ground with Border Patrol and local law enforcement officials because you had Kristi Noem and some other folks say that, this guy, Alex Preddy, he came in brandishing a weapon, is what they were saying in Washington, D.C. This is what Kristi Noem was saying, that the guy, Alex Preddy, came in and he was, this is what they said, brandishing a weapon and ready to do the most damage possible. Well, no, because unless there's something that I don't know, his gun was in his waistband, and that's where they found it. He wasn't brandishing anything. And so as far as he wanted to do the most damage possible, it doesn't seem like that was his intention, because he did not have his gun in his hand.
Unless he was threatening them verbally.
And I didn't hear anything where he was threatening them. But what I heard him say was, don't touch her. And he's jawing at the law enforcement.
Right. Now,
they had every right, in my opinion, to pepper spray him. They had every right, in my opinion, to throw him on the ground. They were impeding with law enforcement. And Alex Preddy was impeding law enforcement. The problem that he has, and that, people that are on his side, and I'm on law enforcement side, but I want to give both sides of the story, is that he had a loaded gun and he was jawing at law enforcement. And here we are. I can't believe we have to say this again, Joan. We all know how to avoid getting shot and killed by a member of law enforcement, and that is by not impeding in their actions. The other thing about this is you've got the media talking about how Alex Preddy was an ICU nurse, which he was. But apparently he was also part of this anti-ICE network.
Yes.
And so Cam Higbee, y'all know Cam Higbee. He is a citizen journalist, very well known. And so he infiltrated a signal chat where a bunch of people were coordinating to stop ICE and disrupt ICE and do whatever they could to impede them from doing what they were there to do. They were responding to ICE vehicles by sharing license plates and mobilizing spotters and then interfering with ICE. And so some are even saying that the Minnesota lieutenant governor, a lady by the name of Peggy Flanagan, was part of this group. And if you look at what this whole thing was, I mean, they've got a training manual and, they've got information on donors and who was working with this, group, this anti-ICE network where, I mean, it's very organized. And so I wasn't really surprised by how organized they are. I mean, this is the modern day left, and so I would almost guarantee you, I don't have any actual facts on this, but I'd be willing to bet that the likes of George Soros and, NGOs funded by George Soros are probably funding money into this organization. But I love that Cam Higbee was able to infiltrate this group to show how organized it is. And so then the question is, was Alex Preddy part of this anti-ICE network? So there's a lot here. This is the reporting, by the way. I want to make sure I get this in, from Bill Malusian from Fox News. He says that he is told that there is extreme frustration with DHS officials going on TV and putting out statements claiming that Alex Preddy was intending to conduct a massacre of federal agents or wanted to carry out maximum damage, even after the numerous videos appeared to show those claims were inaccurate. While they say it was a terrible decision to show up with a gun and inject himself into a federal law enforcement operation, there is no indication, he says, that Preddy was there to murder law enforcement, as videos appear to show that he never drew his holstered firearm. He says these sources say that his messaging from DHS officials has been catastrophic from a PR and morale perspective, as it is eroding trust and credibility, comparing it to when Democrats falsely claimed the border was closed or that Haitians were being whipped at the border. It goes on, but I think that you get my point. So Bill Malusian is saying that, the things that, Kristi Noem and some of the folks from the Trump administration, what they're saying is not matching what local law officials or even the Border Patrol is saying about the death of Alex Preddy. So there's a lot to this. There's other videos, by the way, and I'm sure you've seen the videos, Joan. Unfortunately, these days you don't know what's been manipulated with artificial intelligence. But I did see one video where Preddy, before they shot him, he was trying to reach around. And so that would give an indication that maybe he was trying to find another firearm. Remember that you've got these videos and you've got people that are, they're slowing these things down to like frame by frame by frame. And these things happen just in a matter of seconds. Milliseconds.
Yeah,
and
it's so fast.
Yeah, so, you're going to have law enforcement and the Border Patrol and the Trump administration, really demonized with this story, but there's a lot more than meets the eye on both sides. And so
I want to, if you would, I want to go back to, you were talking about that Signal chat group.
Yes.
This is how organized this group was. It says, so they have different symbols that you would put next to your name, and it would tell them who's out there and helping. So if you've got a car, it's the mobile patrol. If you are a car with a stop sign, it's a stationary patrol. If it's a person running, that's somebody on foot patrol. If there's a phone next to your name, that means that you're part of dispatch.
Yep.
And what we don't know it, but there's, what this guy, Alex Preddy, would be is an aftercare provider, which is by one of those, it's a heart with like a bandage over the heart, those emojis that you see. So they had all of these signals that would show like what position they would take in this chat group. And it says, while on a shift, please put emoji in front of your signal name so we know your role and location. It was so organized. These people, and their intention was to go out and chase down all the cars, take the license plate numbers, the type of car, and report that. And then somebody would go and look it up and make sure that they knew the location of these cars. And if that car was in this area, then they would know that's an ICE patrol car. I mean, it was so intentional. And Alex knew to be out there because he knew where the action was taking place.
No, you're right. You're right. It's crazy. And I'm not really surprised at the organizational efforts of the militant left. I'm really not surprised at all. But we'll have to see where this investigation goes. And but again, how many times do we have to say?
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you don't get shot by ICE or the Border Patrol or law enforcement, generally speaking? You obey commands and you don't interfere with what they're trying to do, and certainly don't get into their face and start jawing at them. So there is a lot to talk about, and it is 7 o'clock, running way late. Joan's got the news coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.